really started to help me understand how I could fix myself. And we started working together. This is now going back, this is, I think it was 2022, early 2022, I did the consult. Since then, I applied everything he told me to do, lost 40 pounds, got my brain function back, reduced my anxiety levels, got confident, built energy and capacity that I didn't think was there, and then reinvented myself and was able to then make a lot of strides in my life, get promotions, start my own business, and progress. And I've consistently been inspired, consistently and motivated by Jason. Um, Always listening to his podcast, always sending his podcast out to people continuously. I will think, when I'm feeling lazy, when I'm not wanting to get in the cold bath, I will think. Well, I know Jason's out there. He's out there harnessing the Fournier effect. He's in his garden. He's in the cold bath, and he's also getting the sun radiating down. He's probably also consuming DHA at the same time. but yeah. So I wanted to dive into some of these things, Jason, because I found your story really powerful. It's an ongoing source of inspiration to me. It really is. It's something that drives me, motivates me, and I'm still at the start of my journey. I've still got a long journey I want to go, and I know from following you quite obsessively, you said that it wasn't until you were about 40 that you were able to call yourself like at your highest potential. It's multiple years of working on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But in today's interview, I want to peel back some of that and explore yourself. So, Jason, why don't we start with the old version of you, before you were the improvement warrior? Why don't we start with Jason, who was struggling? Give us a picture.
Okay. Well, Jason, when he was struggling, it was a long period. So, how long do we have? But okay, so basically, so I came into the world of bodybuilding. So that was around 1990 is when I started lifting weights, and so Sylvester Stallone was the person that inspired me to do that in the Rocky movies, and all the training and whatnot got me inspired to get into that. And so 1990, I was I think that was I was in 7th or 8th grade, but it wasn't until a little later. So it was when I started college, probably 1997, 1998. I watched Pumping Iron for the first time, which is Arnold's documentary, which I still think is his best movie ever, if you haven't seen it. But Pumping Iron is what wanted me to I basically wanted to become big and become like a bodybuilder, and I actually did want to go into professional wrestling and whatnot. But when I started the bodybuilding journey, so I started reading the Arnold Encyclopedia, and then getting ideas and tips from that, and that's when I started to really get big into nutrition and eating the 6 times a day and multiple times a day, eating every 3 hours. So my sophomore year of college, I went from 167 pounds. I went to 207 pounds in 5 months, and then I went up eventually to 222 pounds. The biggest I got was 234 pounds, but 222 was about the average where I stayed. So I did that in under 6 months, and I mean, I still have the stretch marks on my pecs and thighs to prove it. But so that was, and when I was doing it, I was doing ultra low fat, very high protein. So my protein intake, I would say, was probably anywhere between 350 to 425 grams a day. My fat was under 10%, and I'm still convinced that was what led to my premature hair loss. So that started at 19. So that really, when you're 19 years old and you're starting to lose your hair, it's that can put a big dent in your self-confidence and self-esteem and whatnot. So, and yeah, and then the hair just kept going, and yeah, I just kept following the fitness and nutrition, thinking that it was going to lead me to a better place. So just thinking that if I do that and I listen to everybody who says, finish high school, go to college, get your degree, and then you come out, you get your dream job, you get married, you live in the big house with the picket fence, and life is happy and grand. But as I just continued my bodybuilding ways, and I wasn't, when I say bodybuilding, I wasn't like you imagine a bodybuilder on stage, or like Arnold in Conan or Terminator, that kind of body. I wasn't that kind of body. I was basically fat. So I was like a out of season bodybuilder. So I was probably somewhere hovering around 20 to 25% body fat. So I was pre-diabetic, leptin sensitive. I mean, all the stuff that I didn't know, that I know now, I didn't know then. I just thought I would have told you I was healthy, and I was obviously lying to myself and whatnot. But so that eventually I just kept going with that lifestyle. And I mean, low fat, I mean, the brain it's 60% fat. Most of it's saturated fat, and saturated fat was the one thing that I avoided like the plague. I mean, I used to eat 144 egg whites per week. So, which to me now is just stupid and insane. So your brain needs fat, it needs fuel, and I wasn't giving it to him. And then eventually that led to my depression, my anxiety, my thoughts of suicide and whatnot. So I continued basically that lifestyle until I was like 20, I'd say 27. And yeah, and that's when I moved into, I hurt my back. So I herniated my disc deadlifting. I was wearing a weightlifting belt. So it was the last time I ever wore a weightlifting belt. But I hurt my back deadlifting. So I herniated the disc, and then it caused sciatica to go down my leg. And I basically lifted through the pain for three years. So I remember, I mean, the pain when I woke up, it was, I mean, I could barely walk. But as the day started going on, it started to get a little better, and I could tolerate it. But eventually, I tried to go to what I wanted to do with my life was I wanted to train kids. I wanted to train youth athletes in strength and conditioning, and basically make them better. So in order to do that, you have to I wanted to be like a college strength coach, and eventually move to like the professional NBA, Major League, or NFL, that kind of stuff. But to do that, you have to have a graduate degree. So I decided I was going to get my graduate degree and go to a school in Pennsylvania called East Stroudsburg University. And so I went there. I was supposed to move in with two sisters, and like the day after I got there, I got notice that one of the sisters was in an accident, and they had to break their lease. So they, I didn't have a place to stay. And so basically, when I got to East Stroudsburg, I was living in my car, basically. And then I started school there. I only lasted 3 days. So school was not a big turn on for me. And I just realized after 3 days, I said, I can't do another year of school. This sucks. So, but basically I lived in my car for a couple weeks. After that, I didn't know what I was going to do. And living in my car, is what really caused my back to get super, super bad, to the point where I needed to stop working out. So that's when I decided I was going to open up my own business and train kids that way. So I came back home, and that's when I had to find out like a real job in order to pay the bills and whatnot. But I also had to stop working out. And at the time I was 222 pounds. And when I stopped working out, I lost 71 pounds in 6 months. So this was workouts at that time were pretty much the only thing that gave me any real pleasure. So that's what really put me down into a depressive hole, anxiety. I had thoughts of suicide pretty much weekly. Um, but yeah, so 71 pounds in 6 months. I lost the first 50 in like 3 months. So, and you should have seen me. It was pretty funny because I still had the double XL shirts and the pants, and I was 160 pounds. So looked kind of weird, but yeah. So that was um, what led me down that depressive path and whatnot. Fortunately, I did not have health insurance, so I could not, like, go to the doctor and looking back, I know it was a good thing because they would have put me on anxiety meds and depression meds and all that stuff, and who knows what would have happened to me if I got on there. But I I realized that my life it's not where I wanted to be going, and I knew I was going to basically kill myself if I kept going this way. So I knew I needed to do something, and the the turning point was basically, um, well, the turning point was I got a program from Lucinda Bassett. It's called um, Attacking Anxiety and Depression, and it was on cassette tape, so that's how old it was. But I got that, listened to it, and it really started the wheels turning. And so the first step I made was going to the library and picking up books. So I picked up 2 audiobooks. I picked up Tony Robbins' The Magic of Thinking Big and Rhonda Byrne's The Secret. And that's one thing is when I was going through my depression and anxiety, I was not reading. It was basically Netflix. It was like basically go to work, come home, watch Netflix. And it was the Netflix, the DVDs that you put in the mail. They send you DVDs back. That Netflix, not the streaming kind. So then, yeah, I was not reading books at all, and that's one of the big things I think everybody should do. I mean, even fiction books, because at least fiction you have to read, and then you have to basically imagine what's happening with Netflix and TV, which I think is the biggest mind control device ever created. I mean, you just sit and you're basically in a trance for half hour, 45 minutes, and whatnot. So it's just crazy addictive. But especially if you're not wearing blue blockers. But yeah, so that was the start of the journey, and that was around 2007, 2006, 2007, and then 2007, late 2007 is when I opened my business. I basically found my purpose, found what I wanted to do, and it was originally it was help kids, but I had to move into training adults because making making your main income training kids it's kind of a hard area to get into. There's not a lot of people. There's just like a handful of strength coaches that do that. That's the only thing that they do. So a lot of people need to move into training adults and whatnot, which is what I had to do, and that eventually became my main business and main source of income for a while. But yeah, that's finding my purpose was probably the biggest key in getting rid of my depression, getting rid of my suicidal thoughts, rid of the anxiety and whatnot. So I know there's so many people that just toil in, they just they don't know why they wake up. They're living to die, basically. So I know Les Brown has a quote that says, most people die at 25 and they're not buried until they're 65. So yeah, but so that's kind of the path that I took, and yeah, and then I created like a mind tamer site that was basically how the steps and the habits and the things that I created to get myself out of that funk, and try to help other people to do that as well. So
You see, when we have a vision and a goal and things to start working towards, we can stop being dominated by our mind and allowing our mind and the fear and the anxiousness that we live in, because that was a period of my life where I was housebound for 2 years. And being lost and not having clarity on what you want to do and where you want to be, that is how you imprison yourself in limitation.
yeah.
You put yourself in a mind forged prison, and your world gets smaller and smaller, and your function declines, and you destroy yourself living in a limited way, because to be a fully functioning human animal, which is a very powerful, very strong, very energetic creature that goes, forms a tribe, forms a mission, and goes out and achieves. That's our design, that's our biology. And when we are not living in alignment with our design, then what happens is a lot of problems.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, yes, we decline at every level, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. But the good news is, as we know, Jason, as you now teach to people, and I was able to learn that you can come back from these things. And there's some incredible things that we can do to not only recover and overcome the limitations and anxieties and the destruction of our human potential, but there are things that we can do related to light, water, and magnetism that can turn our situation around and allow us to actually go and be more than we really thought we were capable of. Now, I want to ask you the next question, and it is this. I want to ask you about finding Dr. Jack Cruz and what that experience was like for you.
Okay. Well, I found him twice. The first time I found him, I forget exactly where it was, but it was on a podcast, and that's when I bought his book, the Epipaleo RX, I believe is the title.
Mm-hmm.
So I read that, and I tried implementing some of the stuff, especially I tried doing like the cold and stuff, but I wasn't ready for that. That was around, I would say, 2013. So I wasn't ready for that, because I still had the belief that fitness and nutrition is the way to health. And I had my programs to sell you. I had supplements to sell you. I had all that stuff. So I had basically just a cognitive dissonance and a big ego that I was right, in fitness and nutrition is the way to health. So I basically just dropped all that and went back to just doing and preaching what I had been doing. So then it wasn't until 2018 I found him again. This was on a podcast with the EMF guy, Nick Pinole, and that was basically the turning point, because he was talking about 5G and all this stuff, electropollution, EMF, non-native EMF, and it was like the first was the first time I actually heard that message, and that like all this technology and all this stuff around us can actually be hurting us. And so that's when I really went deep into the Jack Cruz stuff. And so this was, I would say, September 28th, 2018 is when I basically officially became a mitochondriac. So before that, I started getting into his blogs. I started. I went out of order. I read the cold thermogenesis, his cold thermogenesis blogs first, um, which I think for me it was a good thing I did, because that's what got me into the CT. I started it in November of 2018, but yeah, so I became a member of his site. I just read his blogs, went through all his webinars, went through all his Q&As, and basically just I went all in. So it's like I'm I'm still I went back to uh, my old coach this past year, and he's known for helping fitness entrepreneurs, which I used to be, which is, but he can, I mean, he can coach you in anything. I mean, it's sales and marketing, so it's um, the same thing applies to all fields. But I'm around. I see the people when I go to these meetings. They're basically me 10 years ago. Um, so eventually, I want to. That's the that's the kind of person that I want to help, is to get those people out of the funk. But the problem with fitness professionals is they got a huge ego, because we think we're the healthiest and whatnot. I always say, before um, 2018, before Jack and becoming a mitochondriac, I would told you my health was a 10 on most days. But now looking back, I realize I was somewhere in between a 5 and a 6. So yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. But that's when I found him the second time. That's and I got into all his information, and I actually did the information. And that's the main thing, is you have to do it. Um, and he always has a quote like, "It's the mark of an educated person to take something that they fundamentally do not believe and apply it in their life, and then see where it fits." And me applying the light, water, magnetism, all this stuff, I applied it, and it was like magic. I felt better, basically instantly. And when I started, I did it wrong, because I always say sunrise is the most important thing for your health. But when I started, it was I waited till the sun got into the back, because I was afraid of what people would think. I had low dopamine, basically. So when the sun gets to the back, it's already UVA has come out. Um, but even doing that, I felt a lot better. And then I continued the path. I changed all the lights, put the blue blockers on, and all that stuff. And then the rest is basically history. So,
Mm. It's This is the thing. When we finally have found something that actually helps us, and we can actually feel the difference, it's
mhm.
that starts to turn the flywheel of change and starts to get us to really invest in something. I can remember myself when I was on this journey myself and started watching the sunrise and started jumping in the cold tub. I felt different and symptoms were alleviating. And when you have these moments when you're dealing with so much brain fog and it's debilitating, and you're struggling to participate in meetings and things like that, and you have this thought like, how the hell am I gonna get myself together, right? And all of a sudden these are evaporating, and you can function, you can perform, right? And at that moment you do go all in, and you understand that no, this is a priority. I'm going to go down this. I'm going to follow this rabbit hole to the complete conclusion, and I'm willing to see how this goes for me. And myself, I've been consistent for you know almost 2 years now, but I'm still on the journey. I'm still seeking optimal. Why settle for B when A plus is available, right, and all that. So my journey continues. I'm going out of the UK. I'm going to a different environment. I'm going to be settling down there, and because I do better in different environments. And I'm curious for yourself, as you've been on this path for quite some time, far removed from where you used to be. You posted
Mhm.
something kind of recently that it took you so many years to feel like true health, and to see what our organism is actually really capable of, even as a mitochondriac who's been in this procedure for like years and years. Could you talk to me about where you are now with this?
Where I am now is it's basically this is my purpose. This is my passion. Um, and I mean, I don't even I'm probably just 20% through all of Jack's blogs. So um, there's a lot more that I don't know, but as I'm going, I'm starting to connect more dots, and everything's getting a lot clearer. Um, and I'm able to convey that message to other people to help them and coach them, like I did you, and um, basically just help them. So I'm creating basically it's called my total circadian health reset. It's basically just my big coaching program that it's like we work together 24. It's like 12 modules, but they're like every 2 to 3 weeks spaced out. So you can implement that stuff, and um, then we meet again, and then we just go down uh, go down the list and put them into your life, and you see the changes, you feel the changes, and then all that stuff. But basically, yeah, it's what I want to do. I want to teach people how to free themselves from the basically the brainwashing that has been going on since birth, really, because we're all brainwashed since birth. I mean, you probably see most of my posts. You know, into the conspiracies and all that stuff. But basically, if in America, if on your birth certificate you have all capital letters, you are not owned by your parents. You are owned by basically the government. So brainwashing happens. Just it's it's just it needs to be undone. And once once you do basically unlearn what you've learned, you the world is so much more beautiful, but um, you also see the nasty side. So you can see the good versus evil. You can see Darth Vader versus Luke Skywalker. So that's what my passion is now, and my purpose.
Empowering people to play the game of life, to go out into the battlefield, into the arena, and actually have a shot to make something of themselves. This is
Yeah.
the mission critical thing. Is the foundation is biology. The foundation is function. If you
Hmm.
can think clearly, if you've raised your dopamine, if you've dialed all these things in, your mitochondria are functioning the way we want them to, you've got a shot to see reality, to make something of yourself, and to go out there and realize the most of your human potential. Now, with that being said, Jason, many of the people in this world, they are not sitting like you are in their backyard, absorbing terrestrial light, increasing their dopamine, producing hormones. They are experiencing a litany of problems from anxiety and depression and all sorts of the physical issues that we have. And if someone was to come to you, Jason, they've seen your content and they know this guy's got something, but their brain just isn't working like mine wasn't, and they just can't quite see the forest for the trees. How would you advise somebody to start getting their mind back?
Well, I think the two most important steps are, um, the number one is the early morning sunlight. So sunrise is the most important frequency. It basically is our wake up call for our brain. It's basically like our it's nature's cup of coffee, because it turns on our pituitary glands, turns on the right hormones, and um, then when UVA light comes on, which is when the sun gets up to a 10-degree angle of inclination. So I always tell people to download the sun position demo app. And that will tell you exactly where the sun is. But once it gets to 10, that's the signal for the pituitary to stop certain hormones. And UVA also creates other things. So it's creating dopamine, it's creating melatonin. So a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people associate melatonin with the hormone of sleep, hormone of darkness, but it's made in UV light. That's why you should never take them, or not never, but most people should never take a melatonin supplement. Other things that are made in that early light is beta endorphins. So it's basically our body's natural opioid. So we're supposed to be addicted to the sun. Um, so getting those two frequencies are the most important. And you want to always have naked eyes, no sunglasses, no contacts. If you have glasses, pull them down. Um, yeah, and as much skin showing as possible, because those frequencies are also the best because the UV is low. They're also the best to build a solar callus, so you can be out later in the day when the sun is stronger, the UV is stronger, and that's when you're going to make more vitamin D. So most people, especially in most people here in the U.S., have low vitamin D. I'm sure it's the same in the UK. It's usually cloudy there, from what I hear. Um, but yeah, so that's number one, and then number two would be blocking and protecting yourself from the artificial light. Because if you get the sun, you see it every day, the sunrise and UVA, but you go work in an office building for 8 hours under fluorescent lights and whatnot, it's basically just going to destroy you, so to speak. But um, yeah, so and I wear the red blue blockers, which is the strongest ones, but people don't need to start off with that because they're a little intimidated. You can just start with there's three different types. There's like day blockers, which is like yellow or gray. So those block up to 450 nanometers. So 435 to 465 is the worst blue light. So 435 is like the absolute worst um, light that you can get. But those day blockers will block it. And I know there's one doctor who said just using the yellow blue blockers was like the greatest thing for him and for his sleep as well. Um, so everything, it all comes back to sleep, because that's how we regenerate. If your sleep sucks, your health sucks, and you will eventually succumb to a disease if you don't fix that. And I talk to people all the time who say, "Oh, my sleep is fine." And I ask, "Do you drink coffee? Do you drink caffeine?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, of course." And you're like, "Yeah. Well, you just told me that your sleep sucked, because you wouldn't need coffee if you had good sleep." So those are my number one and number two things that I would say you need to do. There's other things that go along with that, but yeah, we just start people down a path, and you should start to feel a lot better within a week or two just doing those two things.
That's it. And when you feel better, you do better, of course. So when it comes to using the power of light, of incorporating these habits to rebuild ourselves and to regenerate ourselves, many out there are interested in performance and productivity and
Mhm.
improving themselves and getting more done and accomplishing goals. I know for myself that was a big factor when it came to why I wanted to heal and why I wanted to regenerate myself, because I knew if I can rebuild my brain function, if I can improve my energy, if I can get my dopamine levels increased, then there is a brighter future for me, and I will actually be able to get beyond where I am. Because when your dopamine's low, because you're sick, you're stuck. You can't.
Yep.
You don't even know how you're fucking yourself. You don't know that you are really not living anywhere near your potential.
Right.
How how would you advise someone who wants to be a lot more productive in their life and more consistent?
Well, the first thing is those two things are early morning sunrise and then blue blockers. But then also we need to work on restoring the total circadian rhythm, circadian biology. So usually when the usually when the brain is off, the gut is off, right? And then they're about to start running some lawnmowers, so there might be some issue. I'll try to speak up. Um, so usually when the brain is off, the gut is off as well. Um, I know a lot of people they will say like the gut is our second brain. Some people say the gut was actually our first brain that created the actual brain. And um, so the one thing about circadian rhythm and circadian biology is it's very easy to separate the gut clocks from like the brain clocks and the rest of the body. Um, so your eating schedule would have, or most people would have to change their eating schedule. So I always say when the sun is out, the kitchen is open. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah.
Okay. When the sun is out, kitchen is open. When um, when it's down, kitchen is closed. So when it's light out, you can eat. When it's dark out, you can't eat. And the sicker you are, the more you have to stick with those rules. Um, yeah. So and that will help tie the gut clocks back in with the brain. Because like the seeing the first sun is supposed to be your brain's wake up call, but then that first food is supposed to be your gut's wake up call, which is part of the leptin prescription. So you're supposed to, after seeing the sun rise, you should be eating sometime within 30, 45 minutes, a big breakfast, big protein, lots of fat, basically to resync the the gut clocks and with the brain clocks and whatnot. Another important thing is the DHA, which you mentioned earlier. Um, DHA is it's the number one food that a human should be eating. Um, basically, it is DHA is omega three fatty acids. A lot of people associate it with fish oil. However, you should not be getting it through fish oil. You should be getting it through seafood because then it's got the evolutionary package with it. It's got the iodine, the selenium, the copper, the B vitamins, all that stuff. Um, but basically, what DHA it does a lot in our bodies, but basically it takes the signals from the sun and turns it into light, and that light basically goes into like an electrical signal because our body is electric. It's an electromagnetic computer, basically. And so it takes that light and then it basically transfers information, transfers the energy all over the body where it needs to go. And then eventually we can turn that light back into, or turn that electric current back into light. And then it goes out. And then, um, yeah, so we're always taking in uh, light, UV light, and IR light. And we're taking those lights because those are the light forms we cannot see. And those lights are basically creating a bigger battery in us, creating our electric signals in us. So, um, yeah, and that's why so DHA basically turns that light into a DC electric current, and that's why like the power grid and the AC current is actually detriment to our health. But yeah, so eating that DHA is what helps us. So we have the most DHA on a per unit basis in our retina, and that's because the light is supposed to go in through the naked eye. And if you're wearing glasses, if you're wearing contacts, if you're wearing sunglasses, then that light can't get into the eye, and that's part of the reason why a lot of people have the brain fog, because sunglasses basically turn everything around. So your hormones go backwards, your cortisol rises, your melatonin goes down, and basically you turn your circadian biology upside down, because darkness is just as important as light. But yeah, eating that DHA is super important. The blue light will actually destroy DHA, which is why the number two thing that I suggest people is for the blue blockers. But yeah, that so eating right after the light, and then changing your eating schedule, and you should never eat more than 3 meals per day. Eventually, you can work up to just eating 2 meals or 1 meal. And I know a lot of people, they'll say that's insanity, because people are eating like 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day. And sometimes they don't even realize that they are eating that many times. They think that just like a snack here and a snack there is not really eating. It's just like 100-calorie snack back. It's not going to do anything. Every time you eat, you have to digest that and assimilate it. All food breaks down to protons and electrons, and so it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 hours for us to fully process those electrons and nutrients and all that stuff. So if you eat every 2 to 3 to 4 hours, you're basically in digestion mode. And when we are digesting, it's one of the most metabolically demanding processes in our body. And so a lot of things get shut down, and that's going to include your brain and your brain power and your ability to think and your ability to stay focused on task on something. Yeah, so yeah, that was one reason I had huge brain fog, because I remember I did a podcast where I went over my food log from like 10 years ago, and I basically had a feeding window of 19 hours. So my last meal would be at like 9:30, and then I'd wake up at 4:30 and have my super healthy protein shake. So yeah, kind of insane. But yeah, those would be some of the things you would need to do to increase your brain power. Sticking your head in a bowl of ice water would be another excellent way.
You had me doing that when I was doing this, yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people won't start with the cold because, but yeah, that's why we start with some other things or easy
And as
stuff.
they pick up,
Yeah.
Jason, it'd be interesting to note that what your kind of habits now are at your stage in this journey now, because I know you've experimented with a lot. I know following you've done so many different things. I know some of your research has expanded. You've done a lot in breathing. You've done a lot in different things like that. And I've also done a lot of deep diving into these things as well, and have been on a journey with a lot of different things, and have continuously picked up new little tidbits from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be great for those who follow you to get a grasp of where Jason is in 2023 and what your habits are now. Maybe they're the same as they were, but it'd be great to check in with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Now that you mention breathing, I mean, if you're basically mouth breathing throughout the day, nothing's really going to change. So, because that's going to dehydrate you, and once you're dehydrated, the mitochondria, the body, it just doesn't work the same. So, but yeah, my habits, a lot of them are kind of the same. But basically, what I think I went by podcast number 18. I went through my health habits, but basically, I try to get when I wake up, first thing I do is, and a lot of nights when it is summer and spring, I try to sleep in a tent as much as I can, and I have like a grounding pillowcase that I sleep on. So when I wake up, I first drink like super cold water. So it's in this Arctic jug here. So it's usually filled up with like up to here with ice. I'll drink 24 to 30 ounces of that, and water is super cold. Water has more electrons. It has more oxygen in it, and that's why I drink the super cold water. So, but I'll drink that. Then I just will go down to my morning sunspot to view the sunrise, and I'll be as naked as possible. I'll just be in a kaniki, which is a tan-through bathing suit. And so I'll usually view that 15, 20 minutes. Then I'll usually come home, start getting the kids ready for school and whatnot. As I'm doing that, I try to get both kids up either outside, or I take them to a window that has the sun shining through it. Window's always open. And so I'll get them into the sun, because their sun exposure is super important as well. I know a lot of kids, a lot of parents, they never get their kids out in the sun, it's basically child abuse. But I try to get them out in the sun, and then I will periodically be popping in and out as I'm doing different things to get them ready. Once they go off to school, then I do basically my UVA walk. So it's a shirtless walk in like short shorts. I just walk around the neighborhood. It's about a 15, 20-minute walk. And then it depends. Now, since it is warmer, I will usually do my workout outside. And then after the workout, I will usually eat, and then I'll do my cold bath. I usually do it 4 to 5 times a week now, since the water is warmer. So I have to put ice into it, and so it adds about 10 minutes, which is why I don't do it every day. So water is typically, I got it down to 61 degrees, which is not that cold, but it's better than nothing. And then after the bath, then I will usually set up my outdoor office here, and then just take calls, do podcasts, and just do whatever I need to do, work with clients, all that stuff. And I'm grounded. I'm in a kaniki, so tan-through bathing suit. Before I got on with you, I was up to 17,000 IU vitamin D. So I should be around probably 25,000 now. And of course, grounded. So these days, when I do have my outdoor office, I'm usually grounding anywhere between 4 to 6 hours a day. And then when I'm inside, when I sleep on that mat and whatnot. When I do have to go inside to my indoor office, I have a clip that clips to my wrist and whatnot. So I try to ground as much as possible. That's one tip, that because all disease is basically lack of electrons, and probably the best way to get it is through connecting with the earth, standing in the earth, swimming in the ocean, swimming in a lake, something that's connected to nature. So then after the workday, then I'll usually go on a a second walk, or I'll pick my kids up and we'll go to a playground to get them some sun. Then we'll come home, cook dinner, and then it's just relaxing time. So usually after I get them to bed, I usually try to meditate and I try to do my mobilizations, which is just like movement exercises to basically keep my body limber and fresh. Yeah, because I mean, if you just work out and you don't do like the mobility and stretching and that kind of stuff, your body will break down and start to hurt, and then you'll eventually quit, which we don't want. Yeah, and then sometimes I'll do late night work, but then usually I'll get to bed. Try to get to bed. Usually, sometime I try to be in bed by 10 and try to fall asleep by 10:45. So nowadays I'm trying to get at least 7 hours, 15 minutes of sleep. So my sleep, the amount of sleep I get changes. So now that the sun is rising at like 6 o'clock, it's like the lowest it will be all year. Winter, I tend to get more like I'm more 8 hours to 8.5 hours. So yeah, so the schedule changes seasonally. Right now and through summer, sometimes I will wake up and work out before the sun rises, but that won't happen until probably October or September, or October or November. Yeah, so that's basically what I do. And I mean, I'm drinking water throughout the day. I usually get a DHA meal, and I'm usually only eating 2 meals a day. I am trying to fast on Tuesdays now, so trying to incorporate more of that. And yeah, so yeah, things are constantly evolving based on what I'm reading, what I'm seeing, and whatnot. Yeah, but that's the gist of my day.
You see, when people may hear this who may not be acquainted with healing your biology and actually cultivating like genuine biological health in our organism, they may think, well, this is a lot of stuff that Jason's doing. This is crazy. He's doing this entire process every day. Like, to a lot of
I didn't start
people,
here. Definitely didn't start here. Yep.
this is the thing. One of the
Always
things
starting
I
with one
learned,
thing.
a thing that I kind of took a lot from when you were kind of introducing me to these, was that you're going to seem a bit crazy when you're living this lifestyle. You're going to seem a bit. I remember you would post about eating DHA outdoors, and it may be some anchovies or sardines, and it may be some smelly fish that someone may look at you and think, okay, this guy's crazy. But to be healthy in today's world, that really is what it takes. It beats
Yeah.
the alternative, which is fertility problems, which is brain problems, which is anxiety, which is depression, which is not having much of a life at all. To be honest,
Yeah.
I don't see the alternative.
Yeah. I definitely didn't start with all this stuff. It's one thing at a time, and once I felt better from that, and then I learned something else and try to implement that. And if you feel better from that, then you keep doing it. But some things have fallen off, and some things have not. So I always say, nothing feels as good as health, as being healthy. So nothing tastes as good as being healthy. So you can eat all the ho-hos, donuts, and pizza and whatever, but there's a consequence for that. I'm not saying that I don't do that. So I do have certain treat days that I'll basically just eat whatever I want, but then I go right back to my normal stuff. But I'm on those treat days. I'm still doing a lot of the sun exposure, cold exposure. I'm still doing a lot of that stuff, and like having those treats, it doesn't affect me as much as it did when I was living indoors and blue light and just focusing on nutrition and exercise. So a lot of people, I know they're scared that they'll have to give up their favorite food forever, or they'll have to stop drinking wine or beer forever. But you'll feel better, and when you feel better, you do better, and when you do start implementing this stuff and you start learning why you should be doing it, because when you do learn the why, it's a lot easier to keep doing it. Because I know, I mean, when the cold bath is 32 degrees, okay, I have that little voice. He's trying to talk me out of it, but most days I win. But I always, what's the benefits of this? I mean, the benefits are far outweigh everything. So that's why I usually win, and I get in, and after I get in, that's when, things start going good. You feel good. You feel good about yourself. You did something positive, and you raise your dopamine, you raise your norepinephrine and your epinephrine and all these neurotransmitters and everything. So that's what happens when good habits compound on good habits. But then the opposite can happen when bad habits compound on bad habits, and we get sicker and we die faster, which we don't want, obviously.
It's probably a sign that the mitochondriacs have got it right when we consider that this is a process that is work. That is, you have to earn this. You have to do the work. You have to go watch the sunrise day in, day out. You have to put in your time in the cold tubs. You have to consume DHA. You have to do the grounding. You have to do this consistently. You have to monitor your sleep. You have to have all these things on point. Because if we know anything about life, it's that anything that is truly worth obtaining, it is difficult to get those things. And health is a multi-year project for some people. It is a real goal that you have to focus on. You actually have to consistently work on. And it comes over time. You rejuvenate your mitochondria. This happened for me over time. You know what I mean? You have to have patience. You have to just keep showing up and keep sticking with it, right? And the results that you see are what keep you going. And when you see that you're actually getting better, and the sad thing is, a lot of people around you are getting worse, that's when you know you're onto something. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. You know how many? I mean, speaking personally, right? As someone who's put himself back together again through what we're talking about, and then went out and done more and accomplished more goals and so on, and continued to grow, and now I'm running my own little business and all that. I remember some of my friends who also, some time ago, also were quite ambitious and wanting to make change, and they weren't doing the things that we talk about, and they didn't move, and they had the intention, they're my friends, they're great people, but they're still living indoors, they're still going to nightclubs, they're still being exposed to artificial light. They're frying their mitochondria, and their energy is not on point, and
Right.
and dopamine levels are destroyed, and that is why, like, I can't. It's hard to get through to these people and explain to them why they're not progressing in their life, and why, even though they want to achieve things, why it's not happening for them, right? And it's, in my opinion, that's what happens. Mediocrity ensues when your biology is stuck.
Right.
It's a competitive advantage for us, though, Jason, and it's a competitive advantage for anyone who wants to work with you. So, how about you let us know how those who have listened to you today could get in touch and learn more about you and potentially work with you. Talk to us about where you are.
Okay. Well, probably the best way to get in touch with me, I'll give you two ways. So my newsletter, you can go to improvementwarriorfitness.com/NL, and then just enter your information. You'll get on the Improvement Warrior newsletter. So that's where I send out all the information, and you can contact me through there, or just social media. So Facebook and Instagram, I am at sun.yun.jason, and the other ones you can just look me up there. So YouTube, I'm Yun Training, so a lot of videos there. So that's probably the best ways to get in touch with me.
And I'm glad that you've outlined a few different ways to get in touch with you there, because we know what happens when Facebook like to ban you, Jason. That happens, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And yeah, recently LinkedIn banned me as well. So yeah, one of the they said 3 posts were bad. I mean, 2 were COVID related, but one was because I said that you can actually reverse type 2 diabetes. So obviously they don't want that information getting out to type 2 diabetics because it's a $1 billion business.
This is the sad thing, that there are incentives to stop people becoming healthy. There are, right?
Right.
It's difficult to kind of forward a message of how to actually genuinely build health when what we're talking about is just so far outside the mainstream and so far outside the norm that they don't understand that this is actually how you build your biology. This is how you build your function. And when you're not functioning really well, like, this is how you level yourself up. And their idea is that you have to go to a doctor or go to a gym, get a new diet plan. But unfortunately, it doesn't quite work like that.
No.
We both learn the hard way. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Jason, is there anything else you want to leave the listeners and viewers with today?
It's consistency. That's the thing that has to win out. It's consistency over motivation. Um, yeah, finding your purpose is big as well. But as you start to heal your brain and whatnot, that everything starts to get clearer for you. So it's just pick one thing and stay consistent with it, and then watch the changes happen. And yeah, and then you never know where you're going to go. So um, it's basically you're in a video game, which you shouldn't play, but you're in a video game. You're trying to build the character up, so he builds more strength, more armor, gets more weapons, gets more strength, more punching, kicking power, all that stuff. So never know where you're going to go.
Yeah. As we know ourselves, Jason, from the work that you did with me, that I'm extremely grateful for. That I was able to get out from you. I was able to put myself really in the fight, right, and put myself in a position where I have my resources back. I have my faculties. I don't have to sit in the back and be in the shadows in life. I don't have to be the guy in the background. I can also participate and go after the things that I want and compete and have an opportunity to be the person I want to be. And it started with rebuilding myself. And what is really fascinating to me, that this shit was free. You go out there, you watch the sunrise. You go out there. You have to have the knowledge, the expertise, the specialism, which I was able to get for you, and you have to believe that it will work. One of the things that helped with my consistency and still does is that I still listen to a podcast again.
Yep.
I still read your things again. I continuously affirm it, and I'm always anchoring my commitment there. In the ice tub, I'm listening to your podcast, right? Things like that, and it's a reminder. It's just always bringing me back, because to get to my goals, which are very ambitious in life, this is what it's going to take. And because I am relentless, and I actually did these things that you told me to do, and I still do, I know it'll come together. So,
Right.
Jason, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, most importantly, for being who you are and taking it upon yourself to have the passion that you do and to inspire people by actually living this, because I assure you have more impact than you may think, and I want you to know
I
that
appreciate that.
I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. So, Jason Young, thank you. Thank you so much. It was a
Absolutely.
privilege to talk to you today. And as ever, I'm going to be following your journey and continuing to grow. And we have to speak again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Revi.
It was a pleasure. Let's go.
Yes.